Welcome to another episode of I Take,
D.
where we will be having a conversation and our topic will be what's your baggage. And when we talk about that, we're not saying your baggage that you bring to the Bahamas or that you bring to Jamaica. We're talking about baggage, like internal baggage that we bring into our marriage. And a lot of times we don't recognize it or we don't realize it until we get into arguments and we get into this back and forth with each other.
Absolutely. I think those are, everyone has them. So no one comes into a relationship or a marriage without them. So we all strangle them all along. And many times, that is the focus of our conflicts and the themes of our conflicts. And in many cases, we end up in broken relationships and divorces. So today we're going to talk about what's your baggage, and perhaps you don't know what your baggage is. So we perhaps with our experience, we're not experts. My husband says that all the time. We're not experts. We're just talking about our own daily experiences in our marriage, that you can probably identify your baggages by the end of this series.
Yeah, so we want to just remind you that this will be a two-part series because there's so much we can talk about from our own experiences, and it's important that we share like that. You don't feel like you're the only one, and believe me, you're not the only one. A lot of us bring baggage into our relationships, and even when we think about those baggages before we get married, it can still flare up somewhere in our relationship, somewhere along our path of marriage. And so it's just what we want to talk about is how do you deal with it. And the first one, what we did is we broke them down into three things. Since we said, what is your baggage? We broke them down like we were going to the airport and we're going on a trip. So there's three levels that we thought about. One is the things that you carry in your pockets, like your wallet, your belt, your shoes, that kind of stuff. The second level is your carry-on, the things that you have on a smaller baggage. And so the third is the one you check in. The one you give to the airline and they put it in under the airplane. And I would like to talk about the first one, which is the things that you have in your pocket. When you go to the airport, they say empty out your pockets, take off your shoes, take off your belts, and then they do the whole scanning process. And when we talk about marriage and we bring that into perspective, one of the things that I think is near and dear is like if you have in your wallet, what you have is your identity. Your ID, right? Your identification. And that can go with your culture, your belief system, your values. And you learn that from your family members. You learn that from like mom, dad, whoever you grew up with your family. And one of the things that it wasn't a bad baggage, but it still brought rough patches in our marriage. And one of them was that my parents, they're going on like 39 years of marriage. And so for me, being married was like, once you're married, my example was 39 years, or more. For my wife, it was, her parents got divorced.
At the age of 9.
At the age of 9, when she was 9. So can you imagine the difference there? So I remember one time, we're getting close to our 10th year anniversary for our marriage. And my wife is like, I want to celebrate it big. I want to do something very nice. And I was like, for what? Like, it's just 10 years. Who cares? So I didn't say who cares, but, that was my attitude about it. And I was like, it's only 10 years. Like, I would really think that we should celebrate like 20, 30 years, 50 years. But she really felt like we should have celebrated our 10th anniversary. And it wasn't until we really had a conversation about it that she said, hon, what you don't understand is that my parents never made it.
They just made it to the 10.
They just made it to the 10.
So for me is, my parents got divorced after 10 years of marriage. And for me, making it to the 10th year and still married, it was a big, achievement for me because I've never experienced that in my family. My family has been a family who have been divorced, couples who've been in a relationship for 20 years but never been married. So I never experienced the boundaries of the relationship of being married and being faithful to each other and for many years. So for me, when we reach our 10 year and we're happily still married, that for me was something, wow, we made it because my parents didn't make it this far.
And I think what was difficult for both of us is that she never shared that with me. But I never shared with her why I didn't think 10 was the year we should celebrate. So it took time for us to have a conversation, and that's why it's important to talk about your baggage. And if it's difficult for you to talk about your baggage, because at some point we're going to touch some real issues, some real deep issues, that if you really can, that you look for a professional. And if you don't know a professional, of a Christian counselor, private message us. We have plenty of names of good counselors that you can perhaps get some help for you and your spouse to have a conversation or to get some of these things out, because that's really what made the difference in our marriage, where we sat down and talked about, like, okay, so why do you think it's important to celebrate 10? And then not just there, we went further than that by asking me, why is it not, like, she felt like she was so excited about it and that I didn't show excitement. And to be honest with you, and I told her, I said, I am excited that we're reaching 10, but it never went beyond that. So she felt like I just didn't value it until we had a conversation that we both realized we both value 10 years. It wasn't that I didn't value or that she valued more than me or vice versa. It was more that we didn't have a conversation about why didn't I think. And for me, it was that my parents went beyond 10 years. I mean, by the time they were 10 years married, I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
I'm 38 now, and they're going on 39 years of marriage. So for me, it was beyond that. For her, it was being able to celebrate something that her parents never reached.
And there I unveil one of my baggages that I have been carrying for 10 years in my marriage. And that baggage, it can easily be identified as broken relationship, non-lasting relationships in my generations of family that I have brought into my marriage. Because automatically, well, if it happened to all my generations of family members, I'm probably identify as one of them. So that baggage I brought to my marriage, and it wasn't until that we hit that 10-year mark that we were able to unpack, right? Unpack my baggage of those unhealthy relationships and the past of unbroken marriages.
And from both of our ends, it was to be able to understand the background, understand why. Once you know the why, it's not it shouldn't be used as an excuse to continue to move that way or to react or act that way, but it's an opportunity to at least know the why. You know the background now. You know why things are happening the way they do, and it's an opportunity for you to then learn from it, get better. And so now I understand. Like, if she says, "Look, we want to celebrate," I should be understanding and say, "You know what? Let's celebrate it." Because I know where you've been, and that's the moment where I can show her that I'm going to support her.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what, that's what's so important to having a husband or wife that is going to be supportive and loving enough to unpack your luggage.
Yeah, and not judge.
And not be judgmental, and be so loving and kind to when all that stuff start coming out of the luggage, that they just begin to have a connection of, wow, I didn't know, and how can we work through this together? So that's so important. And if you're listening to us and you have probably can identify with me, and that's the kind of baggage you had in your relationship. But the most important thing today that we want to make sure that you know and understand, that it's not until you begin to identify what that baggage is and begin together to unpack it, there's just no way that you're going to continue in your marriage without having that being a theme of your conflict.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So again, it goes back to conversation, but through that conversation, some conversations you're not ready for them. Let's be honest. Some conversations you're really not ready for. And so, again, if you're not, then probably looking for a professional. But if you are, then taking the time to have these conversations. They're very uncomfortable. They can, they take time. So you got to have some patience. And again, don't be judgmental. Try to support each other through the process and to understand where you both are.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't know if we should jumping into another baggage that
The second level,
a second level of
the carry-on.
the carry-ons, right? So now we face that one. So I want to talk to you about trust and bringing that luggage of to your marriage. So for me, for example, I'm speaking from my own experience, trust was a humongous issue for me. I come from a lifestyle that the male figure in my eyes and my view was not well respected. Why? Well, when I mentioned that at 9 years old, my parents separated, that's the last time I saw my father for a long period of time when he came back into our life and then completely vanished again. So my whole entire childhood, I have broken promises of a father figure, of things that he promised. I never saw him. He completely disconnected from us. And that completely started entailing and unveiling in my relationships, the people that I was choosing to date in my life. And trust became huge. Now I didn't trust nothing that a male figure would ever tell me because of the broken promises that I had experienced in my father's relationship with me and in my relationships in the past before I got married. So all those things tickled in. So when I met Joel and we got married, for me, I didn't trust him, right? Here you go, another male figure. So I was in this mentality of, before you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. So because I had this wall, this barrier. And it wasn't until we began to talk with each other and say, you know what, Joel, you need to know this about me. This is what my struggle is, to trust you. This is my struggle of not being able to fully trust you in our relationship. And I begin to unfold and I begin to unpack my luggage of trust in our relationship, because most of our conflicts were because of that. I also came from a relationship that betrayal, so that alone, bringing that to my marriage was like, well, is he going to do it too? Is he going to cheat on me? Is he going to betray me too? Is he going to stab me in the back too? Is he going to walk out and leave me like my father did and never come back? Those things of trusting, I had to allow my husband to know my baggages from the past. So when I began to unpack, he began to listen, and we were able to cope with each other, and he was supported enough to be able to build bridges to say, you can trust me. You can trust me, and this is how we're going to start building these areas so that you can trust me, and I need you to gain my trust. So he didn't say from the beginning, oh, you need to trust me. No, he said, I know I need to gain your trust. And these are the areas that you worked on. And you want to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so what I started doing is I started like overcompensating for things, because I didn't just want to be like, well, I'm not that person, or I'm not your father, I'm not that previous relationship that cheated on you. Again, once they start unpacking the baggage and sharing with you, you got to be very compassionate about it, and you also got to be very understanding without being judgmental. And so what I started doing, and I still do now because now it's like part of my life, anywhere I went, I will text her, I will call her, and I will say, hon, I'm going to be at so-and-so place. So I'm going to be here, I'm going to be there. And still today, when I meet with a female, I put it in our calendar and I let her know where I'm at what time, and who I'm meeting with. And when I'm leaving work or I'm making I'm making my way to work, I always tell her, hon, I'm on my way home. Like that, I create a bridge where there's no doubt. And it's not that she's checking up on me. It's just, I know she had trust issues. She shared that with me. She was vulnerable by sharing that with me. So now, as her husband, as her partner, it's important that I do a little extra just so I can show her, hon, you can trust me.
Right. And it's true. And it has helped our relationship and so much more. And I can say that in that area, he has helped me tremendously. And we have been able to build a healthy marriage in that area.
Yeah. So, we want to remind you that if you have any questions or anything you want to share with us, or topics that you want us to bring to the I Take D ministry, please private message us so it doesn't, it's not all out there. Follow us on I Take D ministry on Facebook, like our page, share our information with others, and we will see you next Saturday at 6 p.m.
Yeah, and we will continue talking about what's on your baggage. Session 2.
Yeah, all right.
Take care.